materia de toma de decisiones para seguir luchando contra la inflación. Y tenemos con nosotros a Laurent Denize, es CIO de Oddo. Laurent, thank you so much for having us a few minutes. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
We are looking carefully at the next monetary policy moves and with caution, we could say that. We know that the ECB has the intention to raise rates by 50 basis points in March, as Lagarde announced in February, these past weeks. Which are your expectations for the next monetary policy meetings?
Yes, I think it was quite clear, what Mrs. Lagarde has announced, all right? They want to fight inflation and they are not going to bend in front of any recession fears. So our expectations is not only 50 BP for March, but also 50 BP more in the next meeting, and why not 25? So the trajectory is still on the upside. And Isabel Schnabel, one of the most influencing members of the ECB, is really pushing hard on a trajectory that could put rates up to 3.5 or even 3.75. Why? Because growth has been very strong. And the last PMIs, published yesterday, have shown that there was some resilience among the European Union, among all countries, and even Germany, benefiting from the fact that energy prices have come down. And this is fairly good news for the growth outlook. But at the same time, inflation is somehow quite sticky, and they want to stick to their mandate. And their mandate is inflation coming back to 2%. So our expectation is, yes, it's still not finished, and 50 BP is certainly not the last hike for the time being.
And Laurent, where do you see the terminal rate?
As I told you, 3.5 or maybe 3.75%. So there is still some room, all right, for the market and the investors to recognize that rates have not reached a plateau or even are not pivoting. I think there is some complacency among investors betting on the fact that the Fed or the ECB are going to bend or to capitulate in face of a recession that is not ahead of us for the time being. So rates, long-term rates, should maybe hit by, let's say, this willingness from the central banks to hike more and to make sure that inflation is something from the past, which is far from being certain, and especially as China has reopened. So we haven't seen the impact of the reopening of China for the time being. So the Fed and the ECB are going to wait for first the impact of the tightening policy and also the impact of the reopening of China.
Laurent, we are seeing how different firms are talking in your terms, 3.5, 3.75, the terminal rate. So we are seeing how the bets are pointing to that direction. Do you think markets are overreacting with this focus in 3.5, 3.75? Because one of the members of the ECB said that markets are overreacting. It's been the French, Villeroy.
Yeah, Mr. Villeroy again. Absolutely. No, I don't think that markets are overreacting. I think markets are just recognizing that the trajectory, again, is on the upside. It's not over. So what was, again, a belief that the central bank would stop in front of a recession probability that was quite high in December, we are not in the same scenario yet, all right? So inflation is sticky again, and growth and let's say earnings are resilient. Companies are coping quite well with this context, and this is fairly good news for the economy. But the consequences are that central banks are not going to end their tightening policy anytime soon. So investors are moving from a complacent mood towards a recognition of the fact that they need to adapt themselves in their investments, and maybe long-term rates, and especially the German 10 years yield at 2%. This was the yield, 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago. This is over, and it may go to 2.5, 2.75. We don't know exactly, but it's quite a sharp move, and it's just the recognition of it. There is no overreaction from investors on that side, just an adaptation, I would say.
And of course, in Europe, we are looking at inflation and its evolution. Core inflation remains high, and these pressures are worrying, not only in the ECB, but of course in the ECB. Are these rate hikes having the result on inflation expected?
That's a very good question, because inflation is coming from exogenous factors, and especially for most of it, the fact that energy prices have rocketed up. This is so now we are seeing, let's say, inflation coming back. Why? Because energy prices are coming back, very simply. Is there any second round effect? Wages inflation? Not that much. So for the time being, the ECB or even the Fed, but I would say more the ECB is fighting about, let's say, a shock offer, and in responding in hiking rates and in fact dampening demand. Is it the right answer? I'm not sure. But do they have any other tool? I don't think so. Maybe in the quantitative tightening, but then it's about liquidity. It would maybe address another signal. Is it going to act on the offer? For sure not. But limiting the demand is going to act on growth. Is it going to finally limit inflation? Depends on these second round effects. If inflation disanchored, if let's say salaries are picking up, then might be the good response. If ever this is not the case, it's damaging more the economy than having any impact on inflation, for sure.
Laurent Denize, thank you so much for having us a few minutes. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you. Cheers.
Bien, pues muy interesantes los mensajes.